It's a busy Tuesday evening at the small, family-owned restaurant on the corner of Maple Street. The place has a cozy, yet bustling vibe, with the clink of glasses, the murmur of conversation, and the sizzling sound from the kitchen. Waiters move swiftly between tables, taking orders and serving meals, and the warm glow from the hanging lights gives the room an inviting, almost intimate feeling. Among the staff is Mike, a young waiter in his mid-20s. He's been working here for almost a year, and to him the job is just that, a job. Nothing special. He doesn't get starstruck by celebrities, and honestly, he thinks most of them are pretty out of touch. People come and go, sit in their fancy clothes, order expensive dishes, and rarely seem to care about anything beyond their own little worlds. Mike has seen it all, and his opinion of famous people? Well, let's just say it's not great. Mike's attitude towards celebrities is shaped by rumors he's heard. They're all the same, he thinks. Arrogant, self-absorbed, acting like they're better than everyone else just because they're on TV. So when the host tells him that he's about to serve a special guest tonight, Mike doesn't think much of it. He shrugs it off and gets ready to take his usual round of orders, preparing himself for another evening of dealing with demanding customers. But then he hears a voice from the door. "Reservation for Stallone," the voice says. Mike doesn't even look up at first. He's used to hearing all kinds of names, but when he does glance at the door, his heart skips a beat. Standing there is none other than Sylvester Stallone. Mike takes a deep breath and forces a smile. He's worked with all kinds of customers, but this is different. This is Sylvester Stallone, the legendary action star, the man who made Rocky and Rambo household names. Mike's not sure what to think. Part of him is in awe, but another part feels annoyed. He can't help it. Celebrities like Stallone always seem to walk around like they own the world, like their fame makes them untouchable. And that's not something Mike respects. "Good evening, Mr. Stallone. Table for one?" Mike says, trying to sound professional, but not masking the sarcasm in his voice. Stallone smiles, a warm, easy smile that makes Mike pause for a moment. "Two, actually. My friend's joining me," he says, his voice low but friendly. Mike motions for Stallone to follow him to a table near the window, rolling his eyes just slightly as he turns away. He can feel his own judgment starting to take over. He'd heard stories about stars being rude and demanding, and he's already bracing himself for what's to come. "So what's the special tonight?" Stallone asks, as he sits down, scanning the menu. Mike shoots a quick glance at the menu, thinking about how overpriced everything is. "Well," he says, leaning against the table with a slight smirk, "everything's pretty much the same. It's all pretty basic stuff. If you're looking for something exciting, I guess you could try the steak, but who knows?" Stallone chuckles softly, his eyes twinkling with a quiet amusement. "I'll take the steak then, medium rare," he says, not reacting to Mike's tone. "Of course," Mike says, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You sure you don't want a side of your own movie to go with it? Maybe a big plate of the Expendables or something?" Stallone pauses for a second, looking up at Mike, but instead of the anger Mike expects, he just smiles. "I'll leave the movies to you," he says, still calm and composed. Mike feels a flicker of confusion. This wasn't the reaction he was expecting. Isn't Stallone supposed to be a diva? As Mike heads back to the kitchen to place Stallone's order, he can't help but shake his head. There's something off about the whole situation. He's just not buying the calm, collected demeanor Stallone is showing. He's probably faking it, Mike mutters under his breath. All these stars are the same. Back in the kitchen, Mike tells his coworker Tom about the encounter. "You won't believe it," Mike starts, his voice laced with disbelief. "Stallone is sitting right there. You'd think a guy like that would at least act, well, like he's better than everyone else. But no, he's all nice and polite." Tom raises an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. "Really? That doesn't sound like the guy you see on TV. What's the deal?" "I don't know," Mike replies, shaking his head. "I thought he'd be more, well, demanding. Like, I want this, I want that, the usual stuff. But he's just sitting there asking about the specials like he's some regular guy." Tom laughs. "Maybe you're just reading him wrong. Some of these actors, they know what it's like to hustle, lights or what. You never know what kind of person they really are." Mike snorts. "Come on, you really think these guys have any idea what it's like to struggle? mean, look at him, he's made millions. He probably doesn't even remember what it was like to work a real job like us. He probably thinks people like us are just here to serve him. Tom shrugs. Maybe, but I wouldn't be so quick to judge. Everyone's got a story. Mike rolls his eyes. Yeah, sure. Well, I don't care. I'm just doing my job, but it's funny, right? A guy who made his career playing tough guys, acting like he's too good to even look at the menu properly. Mike walks back to Stallone's table to deliver the steak, but his thoughts keep racing. He still doesn't get it. How could someone like Stallone, someone who's had so much success, so much fame, be so normal? Mike wonders what it is that makes a guy like him tick. He tries not to show it, but something about Stallone is starting to intrigue him. Later in the evening, as Mike delivers another round of drinks to a table, he overhears a conversation that catches his attention. Stallone, sitting quietly at his table, is talking to another customer. Mike tries to stay focused on his task, but the words he hears pull him in. Stallone's voice is calm but earnest. You know, people think it was all easy for me, but it wasn't. I grew up in a rough neighborhood, had to work for everything I got. Mike stops in his tracks. He can't help but eavesdrop, even though he knows he probably shouldn't. The customer, an older man, listens intently, clearly surprised. I always thought you were just born lucky. I mean, with your movies and all, you made it big so fast. Stallone shakes his head, his voice softer now. No one sees the struggle behind it. I wasn't born into money. I had to fight for every role, every opportunity. People told me I was too ugly to be an actor, that I'd never make it, and when I finally got a break, they told me my script, Rocky, was garbage. But I didn't listen. I pushed through. I believed in myself, even when no one else did. Mike can't believe what he's hearing. He's always assumed that Stallone's fame was just handed to him, that everything came easy for someone like him. But now, he's hearing a side of Stallone that he never expected, a side of struggle, persistence, and rejection. Stallone continues, his tone reflective. I remember, before everything changed, I had to sell my dog to make rent. I loved that dog, but I couldn't afford to keep him. I was living in a tiny apartment, and I didn't even have enough money for food some days. It was the toughest time of my life. Mike's heart skips a beat. He feels a strange mix of guilt and awe. Stallone, the man he had just mocked in his mind, assuming he was just another rich, entitled actor, had been through real hardship. He fought his way to the top, just like anyone else trying to make a living. Mike looks over at Stallone, who's still talking, still sharing more about his early struggles. And now, Mike sees something entirely different. This isn't the story of a man who had everything handed to him. It's the story of someone who had to work hard, sacrifice, and endure pain to get where he is. As Mike heads back to the kitchen, he feels his perspective starting to shift. He still doesn't fully understand everything, but he knows one thing for sure. Stallone's life is much more than what he's seen on the surface. Later, after finishing his shift, Mike finds himself standing near the bar, wiping down some glasses. He's still processing everything he overheard. The Stallone he imagined, rich, arrogant, and unapproachable, seems completely different from the man he just heard talking about his struggles. Mike's mind is buzzing with questions. As he's cleaning up, he notices that Stallone has stayed longer than most customers. He's sitting at his table, sipping on a drink, his friend, long gone. Mike hesitates for a moment, unsure if he should approach, but something inside him urges him to do it. Maybe it's the guilt, maybe it's curiosity, but he feels like he needs to make things right. Taking a deep breath, Mike walks over to Stallone's table. Hey, Mr. Stallone. I just wanted to say. He stops himself, unsure of the words. I didn't know what you've been through. Stallone looks up at him, his eyes warm. What do you mean? Mike shifts his weight nervously. I kind of judged you earlier. I assumed things about you, about your career. I thought you were just another rich actor who had everything handed to him. But listening to you talk, I get it now. You've worked hard for everything you have, and I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Stallone takes a moment considering Mike's words. Then he smiles, genuinely, kindly. It's all right, Mike. A lot of people think that way. It's easy to judge from the outside, but everyone's got their story. You never know what someone's been through until you really listen. Mike nods, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. Yeah, I guess I never thought about it that way. I just thought, you know, all you guys, you get famous and forget what it's like for the rest of us. But now I see, you've been through your own battles. Stallone chuckles softly, setting down his drink. I've had my share, for sure, but trust me, it doesn't make you any better than the next person. Everyone has something they're fighting for, something they're trying to prove. You just gotta keep pushing forward, even when it feels like the world's against you. Mike is silent for a moment, thinking about Stallone's words. He never imagined this conversation happening. He expected a lecture, maybe a cold response, but instead, he found someone who spoke with humility and understanding. Stallone finishes his drink, then looks up at Mike. Don't worry about it. Just take it easy next time, alright? Don't judge too quickly. People are more than what you see on the surface. Mike smiles, feeling a bit more at ease. Yeah, I'll remember that. Thanks, Mr. Stallone. Stallone gives a nod of approval, his expression kind. Take care, Mike. The next morning, Mike can't stop thinking about the conversation he had with Stallone. It feels like everything has shifted in his mind. He'd been so quick to judge, so sure of his opinions, but now he sees things differently. The world of celebrities, the world of fame, isn't as simple as he once thought. As his shift begins, Mike watches as the regular customers come and go. He's back to his usual routine, but something inside him has changed. He feels a little lighter, a little more aware. The lesson from yesterday sticks with him. During a break, Mike grabs a coffee and takes a seat at the back of the restaurant. He's still processing everything, but one thing stands out. He never really apologized to Stallone for how rude he'd been earlier. Mike knows he needs to make things right. The thought of leaving things unresolved doesn't sit well with him. He finishes his coffee quickly, walks to the back office to find Stallone's tab, and heads toward the door. When Mike sees Stallone's car pulling away from the restaurant, he feels a pang of regret. But it's not too late. He walks out the door, takes a deep breath, and starts jogging toward the parking lot. Just as Stallone's car slows down to turn onto the main road, Mike waves his hand to catch his attention. The car stops, and Stallone rolls down the window, a slight smile forming on his face. Mr. Stallone, Mike calls out, still panting a little from his run. I just wanted to say, I'm really sorry for how I treated you last night. I was out of line and I shouldn't have judged you the way I did. Stallone looks at Mike for a moment, then smiles warmly. No problem at all. I get it. Just remember, we're all human, alright? Mike nods, grateful for the chance to make things right. The rest of Mike's shift goes by in a blur. He's more present than usual, his mind not so focused on judgments or assumptions, but on what he can do to make the most of each moment. The interaction with Stallone lingers in his thoughts, and he feels a strange sense of peace. For the first time in a long time, Mike feels like he's really learned something valuable. That evening, after his shift ends, Mike sits down on a bench outside the restaurant, the cool evening air hitting his face. He reflects on everything that's happened over the past 24 hours. He thinks about how easy it is to judge others based on what you think you know, how quick people are to assume things from the outside without ever understanding the full story. Mike's perspective has completely shifted. He feels more open now, less cynical about the people who walk through the door. The world of fame, the world of celebrities, doesn't seem so distant and unapproachable anymore. He understands now that everyone, no matter who they are or where they come from, carries their own burdens, their own stories. And that's something he'll never forget. He smiles to himself, feeling lighter than he has in a long time.